Sahana vavatu, Sahanau bhunaktu, Saha viryam karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sargasthiti Pralaya Hetumachintya Shaktim Vishveshwaram Vidita Vishwamanantamurtim Nirmukta Bandhanam Apara Sukhamburashim Shrivallabham Vimalabodhaganam Namami Yasya Prasadat Ahameva Vishnu Mayyeva Sarvam Parikalpitam Cha Itham Vijanami Sadatmarupam Tasyangri Padmam Pranatosmi Nityam. Okay, let's read verses 25 to 27 to recap. Okay. Parapremaspadataya manabhuvamaham sada bhuyasamiti yo drashta sohamityavadharaya yassakshi lakshano bodhaha tvam padarthassa uchyate sākṣittvamapi bodhritvam abhikaritayatmanaha dehendriyamanah prana ahankritibhyo vilakshanaha projita sheshashadbhava vikarastvam padabhidaha. Okay, so what we saw last time in verse number 25, we saw that our nature is really ananda. The word tvam means you, and you means sat, chit, ananda. We have seen chit, and now we are seeing ananda. Ananda, why is my nature bliss? Because whenever I want to keep something, it means that it makes me happy. I never want to keep something that makes me sad. So if something or someone makes me happy, I want to keep them with me. And if something or someone makes me sad, I want them to leave me. But in the case of the self, we're never trying to get rid of ourselves. We want to be with ourselves all the time. We want ourselves to exist all the time. May I ever be. May I never cease to be. That is our experience. So therefore, we must be that source of joy. Then, if people ask about suicide, well, in the case of suicide, if that particular circumstance was removed, then people wouldn't want to take their lives. If somebody had a huge debt and they felt like maybe if they take their lives, they'll be free from sorrow. Really, if somebody took away that debt, they wouldn't want to get rid of their lives. They only want to get rid of their lives because of an underlying circumstance. that circumstance was removed, then they wouldn't want to get rid of their lives. So our nature is ānanda. And it is also, as we saw in verses 26 and 27, it is also sat. It is also sat because it is avikari, means our nature is changeless. We are changeless. Body, mind, intellect, etc., they may change, but in and through all of it, we are the changeless self. And in that example, I gave you what we call pratyabhijñā. Pratyabhijñā basically means recognition. Every time that we're able to recognize something, it actually reaffirms that there is something changeless that's there. Because think about it, if 5 years ago you knew me and my body changed, my mind changed, my personality changed, everything changed, my name may have even changed, and now you met me and I'm completely different, so what is it that's the same? If 5 years ago I had a different body, mind, intellect, ego, name, lifestyle, etc., and now you meet me and all of that is different again, what is the same? How are you saying that that person is this person? It's because of the ātman. It's because of the ātman that we're able to understand that there's an underlying changeless substratum in everyone, because everything else is different, right? So that ātman is without change, and it is without the 6 vikaras. So in verse 27, it doesn't have any of the 6 modifications. No birth, no birth, no steadiness or existing of something, no growth, no maturity, no decay, no death. No existing of something because it's pure existence itself. So there is none of these in the ātman. So because there's no modifications, there's no change whatsoever, it is sat. It's of the nature of sat, that permanent reality. So up to here, up to verse 27, we have seen tat. We have not tat, tvam. We have seen tvam, you. So when we think about you, when we think about what your real nature is, what my real nature is, it became very clear last time. We started from sakshi, that witness consciousness, who is in the essence chit, pure consciousness alone. And that pure consciousness is clearly ānanda-svarūpa. It's clearly of the nature of bliss. And am I ever going to lose that bliss? No, you are of the nature of bliss, and not only that, you're of the nature of sat, sat, which is that permanent reality. So you can never lose yourself. You can never lose yourself. You can never attain yourself. You are already that. You are already that. And so once we understand this, then tvam becomes very clear. Now he's going to say that, okay, tvam is clear, but what about tat? What about the word that? So tat means that. So verse 28 now. Tvamarthameva nishchitya, tvamarthameva nishchitya, tadartham chintayet punaha. Tadartham chintayet punaha. Atad-vyāvṛtti-rūpeṇa, atad-vyāvṛtti-rūpeṇa, sākṣāt-vidhimukhena ca, sākṣāt-vidhimukhena ca, tvamartham eva nishchitya, tadartham chintayet punaha, atad-vyāvṛtti-rūpeṇa, sākṣāt-vidhimukhena ca. So he says, tvam artham means artham, the meaning of the word tvam. The meaning of the word tvam, evam nishchitya, has been ascertained. Now, tad artham, the meaning of tat, the meaning of the word tat, chintayet punaha. One should now reflect on the meaning of tat again. How? Atad-vyāvṛtti-rūpeṇa, by the method of negation, sākṣāt-vidhimukhena, and by the direct method of scriptural assertion. So having thus ascertained the meaning of the term thou or you, one should reflect upon what is meant by the word tat, employing both the method of negation and the direct method of scriptural assertion. So what does this mean? So tvam became clear. We kept thinking about it, analyzed it in so many ways, but how clear does it have to become? So tvam as a concept, the first step is as a concept, it has to be clear, but the second step is as an actuality, it has to be clear. Not just tvam means, okay, consciousness, it means ānanda, it means existence. No, we have to see it in ourselves that, okay, I am consciousness, I am bliss, I am existence. So at first it might appear as a concept, and it always starts like that because we have to understand the terms clearly and what they mean. But in Vedanta, the inquiry is not of the concept, it's of the subject. So it's a subjective inquiry. It's not an objective inquiry. It has to turn here. So when that inquiry turns here, that's called nishchitya. Nishchitya, having ascertained, means inquiry has turned to me now. And I am seeing how am I sat, how am I chit, how am I ananda. And when that inquiry turns to me, it becomes a subjective inquiry that is doubt-free, then it can become very firm. So when they always say Vedanta is the path of inquiry, the path of inquiry, what does that mean? What does that mean that knowledge is possible through inquiry? It's possible through this subjective inquiry. That's what it means. So I have to quietly sit with this, think about it, contemplate about it, digest it, become free from any doubts about it. Then it becomes so firm. It becomes so firm and it becomes unshakable. So it has to be to the point where this is unshakable. In Sanskrit, there is this nyaya. Nyaya means like a maxim, like a saying. Sthuna nikhana nyaya. Sthuna means like a pole. Nikhana, like when you're digging a pole, right? Let us say you're trying to establish a flag somewhere and you're digging a hole to put that pole in. So you're digging a hole to put that pole in and you're kind of trying to make that flag firm. Now, you have to make sure to cover all of the mud because otherwise it's shaky. So as long as the pole is shaky, the flag is not still. There's a chance that it will fall. But when the pole is very, very firm, you dug a hole and you covered it with mud and it's firm, it's not shaking, that's called knowledge. It's unshakable. Nobody can shake it. So we have to make sure that it's like that. A nishchitya, unshakable. Then he says, so now we've got one part of the equation. Tvam. Now let's look at tat. And this tat can be seen in many ways. So it can be deliberated upon in many ways. First, he mentions two ways here. The first way is called atad-vyāvṛtti. Tat means that. Atat. Atat means not that. Vyāvṛtti means negating what it is not. So negating the not that. So by negating the not that, that's one way to do it. Then sākṣāt-vidhimukhena or sākṣāt-vidhimukha. Vidhimukha means by indicating what it is, sākṣāt directly. So one way to do it, to indicate that reality, tat, is through negation. Negate what it is not, and then after that assert what it is. Negation and assertion. And that's normally what is done, because let us say if we just indicate, if somebody just said, okay, Brahman is existence, Brahman is consciousness. So Brahman is existence, we might think, hey, it could be me. It could be my ego. It is this existence that is always there. It could be my ego. It could be my mind. Brahman is consciousness. Well, I am conscious. So Brahman is me. I am conscious. I am thinking. I am walking. So Brahman is the one who is thinking, who's walking, who's sitting. Or Brahman is bliss, ānanda. Oh, my mind, when it's in bliss, in the state of bliss, that must be Brahman. So when we just assert what it is, there's a danger of catching the wrong thing. There's a danger of catching the wrong thing, misinterpreting it. So usually we negate first, negate what is not, take all of that away, and then say, ha, this is Brahman. Question might come is, why do we still have to assert what it is? Why not just negate everything? I'm not the body, not the mind, not the intellect, not the ego. Why not just negate everything? Because then the student might be confused and say, oh, maybe Brahman is nothing. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just blankness. I negate everything and I find blankness, like what we saw in Viveka Chudamani. So then the step is, well, who is the observer of that blankness? That is you. That is Brahman. So the methodology is, normally this where we do first negation and then we do some kind of assertion to indicate what Brahman is. In and through all of this, I'm sure we all know that no word touches Brahman. Not even the word Brahman touches Brahman. These are all just pointers. They're not the pointed, they are just pointers. They're just pointers. That absolute self is beyond words and beyond thought. But we have to find some way to indicate it. And so this is how the Upaniṣads have given us. So now what he does is in verse 29, he's going to give us some pointers of negation. And then in verse 30, some pointers of assertion. So we can clearly see examples. So we'll start in verse 29. Nirasta shesha samsara, nirasta shesha samsara, doshosthuladilakshanah, doshosthuladilakshanah, adrishyatvadigунакah, adrishyatvadigунакah, parakritatamo malaha, parakritatamo malaha, nirasta shesha samsara, doshosthuladilakshanah, adrishyatvadigунакah, parakritatamo malaha. So, I'll start with the last word first, okay? I'll make this a little bit easier. Parakritatamo malaha. Okay, so mala, in Sanskrit you have to start from the back. Mala means dirt, dirt. Tama or tamo here in this case means ignorance, ignorance. Parakrita, it means it's beyond the dirt of ignorance. So it's beyond the dirt of ignorance. So this means that pure Brahman doesn't even have any ounce of ignorance, any ounce of ignorance. See, dirt is something that covers, right? When something's dirty, when we have a stain, it's like covering covering our clothes, a stain covering our clothes, or dust covering the mirror. So when there's dirt, it's something that veils, that covers, but dirt also implies that it's something that can be removed. Right? When we clean our clothes, then the dirt is gone. When we wipe the mirror, the dust is gone. So Brahman is that which is without any dirt of ignorance whatsoever. So Brahman is not ignorant. There's no question of Brahman being ignorant. There's no dirt of ignorance in Brahman. Who is ignorant? It is the jiva. It's the jiva that's ignorant. The ignorance does not touch Brahman at all. And there are many schools that say that Brahman is the object of ignorance and the substratum of ignorance. And so what we're trying to say here is that everything is superimposed in Brahman. So even this sort of ignorance is superimposed in Brahman, but Brahman is not touched by anything. Nothing is touched. Brahman doesn't experience any of this. Because there's no ignorance in Brahman at all, nirasta, now I'm going to the first word, nirasta shesha samsara doshaha. It has no defect of samsara, completely free from all the defects of samsara. So ashesha means all the samsara, all the defects of samsara, nirasta, it is free from it. When there is ignorance, there is samsara. Samsara means samsarati. It's a continuous flow of a pattern. And what's this pattern? When we are ignorant, what happens is we project duality. We project that the world is different from us. We don't know who we are. We don't know we are Sat, Chit, Ananda. We don't know that the world appears in us. So we project duality. We see the world to be different from us. We see ourselves to be limited. The world is different, we are limited. We see ourselves to be the body, mind, and intellect. And when we see ourselves to be limited, we see the world to be different from us, we start to superimpose joy and sorrow in the world. Because we are limited, we long to complete ourselves. And when we long to complete ourselves, we start to superimpose and say, I think this will make me happy and complete me. I think this will make me sad and will not complete me. Start to superimpose these ideas. So I think this relationship will complete me. I think this career will complete me. I think this house will complete me. We superimpose all of these ideas. And when we superimpose all of these ideas of joy and objects and beings and people, then a desire arises for them, and all of our time, energy, and action goes in pursuit of that, pursuit of those desires, in pursuit of those things. And then once we get them, we enjoy them, and then either we are not fulfilled because we're craving more, or we totally didn't find any fulfillment. One path is we found little bit fulfillment, but now we want more. Another path is I totally didn't find any fulfillment. Now I want something else. So we're stuck in this cycle. It's called samsara. It is like a samsarati. It's constantly flowing cycle, making us think that we are limited. And because we think we are limited, we need to be complete. Because we need to be complete, then we should pursue things in the world to complete us, and then we get stuck in it. So Brahman doesn't have any of this. So no ignorance, therefore no samsara. In fact, the beauty of Vedanta is, at the highest level, it's not trying to free us from samsara. It's telling us that we were never bound in the first place. Vedanta is not a path of trying to make us free. Vedanta is the path of telling us that you're not bound. So there's no question of you needing to be free. You already are that. So this is not in Brahman. And Brahman also is asthula-di-lakshanaha. Second word is indicated lakshanaha by the terms like asthula. Asthula means not gross. So here, this is referring to Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Just going to pull that up so we can see that. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there's a section there between Gargi and Yajnavalkya, where Gargi asks Yajnavalkya about this ultimate truth. And he is caught because if he tries to describe the ultimate truth, then it's not true because it can't be described. And if he doesn't say anything, then it's as if he's ignorant. He doesn't know. So he's caught, right? If he tries to describe the ultimate truth, it won't be truth. And if he remains silent, then that means that he doesn't know the truth. So how he goes about it is he explains the truth, but through negation. So he says this Brahman is asthulam. He has over 20 indications. Asthulam means it's not gross. So it's not big. Ananu. And it's not a particle or an atomical thing. It's not any of that. And he says, arasvam. It's not short. Adirgham. It's not long. Alohitam. It's not red, indicating it's not like the fire element or from fire. Asneham. It's not oily. It's not liquidy, indicating the water element. Then he says, achayam. It is not a shadow, indicating the earth element or darkness. Atamaha. It's not darkness. Avayu. It is not the air element. Anakasham. It is not the space element. So he negates it. He said it's none of these 5 elements. It's not anything that has a form that you can imagine. Asangam. It is untouched. And arasam. It can't be tasted. Agandham. It can't be smelt. Achakshukam. It can't be seen. Ashrotram. It can't be heard. Avag. It can't be spoken of. It can't be described. Amanaha. It can't be thought of. So in this way, he keeps on going and going and going and says, this Brahman is that which cannot be described. It's beyond the 5 elements. It's beyond comprehension of the senses. It's beyond comprehension of the mind. It is beyond all of this. That is Brahman. So this is called atad-vyāvṛtti. This is one way of describing. Then in the next word here is adrishyatvaadi-gunakaha. That which is, it does not, it has the qualities or has the nature, gunaka should be nature here, of imperceptibility, means of not being known. It cannot be seen. So this comes in Mundaka Upanishad. I'll just read it and explain. Yattad adresham agrahyam agotram avarnam achakshushrotram. So it means that it is not adresham. It is not that which is grasped by the senses. Agrahyam. And it can't be comprehended by the organs of action. So the first is the organs of knowledge. Second is the organs of action. Agotram. Agotram means it does not have any cause. Avarnam. It does not have any effect. Achakshushrotram. It doesn't have any eyes, ears. So it cannot basically be known by the mind and senses. And this is reiterated again and again in our Upanishads. So every time you see this kind of lakshana, this is what it's trying to do in essence. It's trying to negate everything that it is not. So we're left with only that, which is Brahman. So free from ignorance, free from samsara, and free from any form whatsoever, and beyond comprehension, this is Brahman. Now, what about the other kind of lakshana, the other kind of indicator? So now, verse number 30. What is Brahman then? Nirastatishayanandaha, nirastatishayanandaha, satya pragnana vigraha, satya pragnana vigraha, satta swalakshana purnaha, satta swalakshana purnaha, paramatmeti giyate, paramatmeti giyate, nirastatishayanandaha, satya pragnana vigraha, satta swalakshana purnaha, paramatmeti giyate. So here, nirastatishayanandaha. So ananda is bliss. Atishayanandaha means great bliss. Nirasta means there is no greater bliss than this. So having no greater bliss than itself. Satya pragnana vigraha. It is the embodiment of eternal consciousness. Satta swalakshanaha. It's indicated by sat, pure existence. Purnaha, it's infinite, all-pervading. Paramatmeti giyate. This is called Paramatma. So having no greater bliss than itself, a pure embodiment of eternal consciousness, and having existence for its specific definition is the all-pervading being. This is the meaning indicated by the term that. So the scriptures declare in their songs. So the first term is saying that this Brahman is Ananda. And it is Atishayananda. It's the embodiment of bliss. So when it says embodiment of bliss and no greater bliss, it means it's the bliss that's beyond gradation. So it's beyond the level of the mind. Because when we experience bliss in the level of the mind, there's gradation. Sometimes we feel, if we get something to eat that we like, we feel maybe this happy. And if we're able to get some good sleep, maybe we're this happy. And if we meet somebody who's so dear to us, maybe we're this happy. And if we get to go on vacation, maybe we're this happy. So our happiness in the level of the world, in the mind level, has these gradations. So sometimes we're this happy, sometimes we're this happy, sometimes we're that happy, and it fluctuates. So maybe we bought a nice big flat screen TV and we got a really good deal for it. We paid maybe over $1,000. And then, so we're this happy. And then we noticed that the neighbor got the same flat screen TV for half the price. Crushed, right? So our happiness gets crushed. It fluctuates, it moves. So here it's saying this is niratishayananda, means this is the embodiment of bliss. There's no gradation whatsoever because it's not in the level of the mind. Then so the question then comes, but is this bliss going to stay? Yes, it is satya. It is pure existence. So this bliss is pure existence. It's a permanent bliss. It's your nature. It's your nature. I want to experience this bliss. Prajnana vigraha. You can't experience it because you are it. It is the embodiment of eternal consciousness. You are it. So prajnana vigraha here is to say that you can't experience this bliss. It's not for your experience because it is your nature. And in Vedanta, it's not that Jivan Mukta person is always going to be smiling and happy, and it's not that kind of bliss. It is that kind of bliss that is purnaha. Excuse me. Purnaha means sense of fulfillment. So you might not see an enlightened being always expressive of bliss, because expressing bliss comes in the mind level. But what their bliss is, purnaha, it's infinite, fulfilled, content. So you will see the expression of contentment. You may not see the expression of happiness and joy and laughing all the time, but for sure you will see this expression of contentment, fulfillment, because this bliss is also, it's infinite. It's infinite. It's infinite. It's complete. It's complete. It's complete where there is nothing anymore wanted. No more wanting, no more craving, no more seeking. It is complete. Purna is to say that it is a complete, infinite bliss. It is your nature. And satta swalakshanaha again is saying that don't worry that this is not going to go away. This bliss, which you cannot experience because it is your nature, it is consciousness itself, don't worry, it is satta. It is always there. It is ever there. Don't worry about it going away. That's called Brahman. That's called Brahman, Paramatma. So now a question might come is, these are the exact indicators that we gave, that Jivatma, the real nature of Jivatma is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, existence, consciousness, bliss. And the real nature of Paramatma, that ultimate reality you're saying is the same thing. It's existence, consciousness, bliss. And what he's saying here is, yes, that's exactly why I use the same indicators, right? Because he's trying to say that it's one and the same. It's not two, it's one and the same. The very fact that our real nature is Sat, Chit, Ananda, and the very nature of Brahman is Sat, Chit, Ananda, means we are one and the same. The only thing is, to assert our real nature as Sat Chit Ananda, it's very much possible through our experience. In the sense, through our own subjective inquiry, we can come to that conviction. Very much so. But when it comes to Brahman, that the substratum of the world is also Sat Chit Ananda, first we it helps to go through the scriptures to understand that, okay, the nature of the entire world, or the substratum of the world, is Sat. The substratum of the world is Chit. The substratum of the world is Ananda. And then later in deeper inquiry, we can come to the fact that, oh, I am that. So it's very easy to understand it from our perspective, from tvam, but from that, as the substratum of the world, it's very difficult to subjectively inquire about that. So first we go through the scriptures to really understand, then later on we can come back to that inquiry. Beyond the mind, so another point is that all the differences that we can comprehend or can fathom are only at the level of the mind. So the difference between this jiva and Brahman is only at the level of the mind. It's only at the level of the mind. We think that, okay, initially when we think of tat tvam asi, tvam in the direct meaning is jiva, and tat in the direct meaning is Ishvara, right? And if we take jiva and Ishvara, meaning the individual being and God, there seem to be so many differences because the individual is so limited, has a small body, a limited strength, limited knowledge, limited everything. And if we take God or Ishvara, all powerful strength, all powerful knowledge, is grand, is in totality. So there seems to be so many differences. But remember, all of these differences are at the level of the mind. When we go beyond the mind, there is no difference. When we go beyond the mind, there is no appearance of the body. There's no appearance of the mind itself. There's no appearance of any limitation. There's no appearance of any space or time or causation. Beyond the mind, there's only pure consciousness. So these differences that we see, they're only at the level of the mind. The minute the mind, one goes beyond the mind, there are no differences. So in the same way, what he's trying to establish is, which he will do slowly, is that this appearance of individuality, jiva, and this appearance of Ishvara, totality, it's just an appearance, really. It's just an appearance. If you go beyond that, then it's just Sat, Chit, Ananda. So one way to come to Brahman is through neti, just through negation. Another way to come to Brahman is through assertion, saying what it is. And as I said, normally we start with negation, we come to assertion. Now, in the next verse, from verses 31 to 36, he's going to come to Brahman through Ishvara, through the concept of God. Because sometimes it's difficult for people just to negate, difficult for people just to assert. So from verse 31 to 36 is going to come through Ishvara. Okay, so we'll read verse number 31. Sarvajñatvam pareshatvam, sarvajñatvam pareshatvam, tatha sampurna shaktita, tatha sampurna shaktita, vedai samarthyate yasya, vedai samarthyate yasya, tad brahmetyavadharaya, tad brahmetyavadharaya, sarvajñatvam pareshatvam, tatha sampurna shaktita, vedai samarthyate yasya, tad brahmetyavadharaya. Okay, so before I explain this verse, just a few things I will go through. So these four terms should be understood clearly when we're doing this kind of inquiry. The four words are Jiva, Ishvara, Atman, and Brahman. And you'll hear these words in Vedanta all the time. So what do they mean? Jiva, we know, Jiva is pure consciousness, but identified with these, what we call upadhis, these limitations, the body, the mind, the intellect. So when pure consciousness is as though identified with the body, mind, intellect, and I take myself to be the body, mind, intellect, that is called jiva. That's called jiva. And when that pure consciousness, when we just talk about pure consciousness with respect to the individual, that's called ātman. So one is pure consciousness, which is as though identifying with the body, mind, intellect. And I'm using the word as though because it's the ego that's really identifying. So pure consciousness as though identifying with the body, mind, intellect, that's called jiva. Pure consciousness with respect to this individual body, mind, intellect, is called ātman. When we talk about pure consciousness associating with the total body, mind, intellect, basically total world, that's called Ishvara. That's called Ishvara. And I use the word associate because Ishvara doesn't identify. Ishvara doesn't get bound, right? Ishvara is free. So that pure consciousness associating with the total body, mind, intellect, total world, that's called Ishvara. And that pure consciousness with respect to totality, that's called Brahman. So at the end of the day, Atman is Brahman. So when we speak about tvam, the word you, the direct meaning of the word you is jiva, and the implied meaning of the word you is atman. And when we speak about tat, the direct meaning of the word tat is ishvara. The implied meaning is Brahman. So this is just so we understand that now he's using ishvara to get to Brahman. Why is he using Ishvara to get to Brahman? Why do we have to bring this Ishvaratva, this Ishvara at all to realize Brahman? So there are various reasons. The first being that there are so many different theories of how the world came to be. And people's eyes are on the world. People are thinking about the world. Normally, if you go walk across the street, talk to people, what are they thinking about? They're thinking about what's happening in the world. They're not thinking about what's inside, what makes the mind think, what makes the eyes see. Regularly, people are thinking about the world. So then inquiry is conducted using the world. So now, where did the world come from? How did it come about? And to negate that this world has come from atoms or particles, to negate that this world has come from, let us say, karma, to negate that it has come from prakriti, what we call matter, to negate all of these things, Ishvara or God is brought in. Because if we look at this world, the cause has to be sentient. Why does the cause have to be sentient? Because think about it, this is given in Brahma Sutras, Janmadhyasya Yataha. It's given in the sutras. If we think of the world, first of all, Nama Rupa Vyakritasya means it's a manifestation of names and forms. Now, so many different names, so many different forms, the whole manifestation of them. How did that come about? A clay does not become a pot on its own. A clay does not become a pitcher on its own. So therefore, if we're seeing a great manifestation of names and forms, there has to be some sentiency behind that, because names and forms don't just happen. They don't just get made. And not by a lump of gold sitting there, it becomes a bracelet, right? And the second reason it's given is aneka kartra bhoktra. Means there are so many different doers and enjoyers or experiencers. There are so many experiencers, I'll just take it, in the world. If there are so many experiencers, or so many doers, meaning so many sentient entities, then how could the cause be some inert matter? How could that be? How could it be? It can't be, because if the cause was inert matter, then we would be inert also. We shouldn't talk or think, but that's not the case. So because we see so many various types, and it's not just one, various types of doers and enjoyers, various types of people, of species, of beings, millions of different types, it must be a sentient cause. The third reason he gives is pratiniyata desha kala, karma, phala, ashraya, kriya. All these different things means everything is so well regulated. There's an order. There's an order that we see in the world. It's random. So, for example, that fish can swim. We don't see fish walking, correct? Snakes, they kind of crawl on the ground. They don't climb on trees. Like snakes have their own dharma. Fish have their own dharma. They're in water, and birds fly in the air. All these different animals, they have their own kind of dharma. It's quite orderly, right? And the bird is made in such a way that it has wings so it can fly. The fish is made in a way that it has gills so that it can be underwater. Monkeys are made in such a way that they can climb on all fours so they can climb trees. So everything is so well defined and regulated that there has to be some sentiency behind it. Because when we see some order in the world, order doesn't come about by inert matter. Right? Even in the army, there has to be somebody to say attention, right? There has to be somebody when you're raising a family, when you're around people, there has to be somebody who ropes everybody into order. Nobody just comes into order just like that. So there has to be some sentiency. And he says, manasa api achintya rachana rupasya, means things are there in this world which we can't even comprehend. Means we couldn't even ever think about making such a thing or doing such a thing. We can't even comprehend how that's possible. How there are so many different kinds of leaves and different kinds of trees, and how there's so many different kinds of beings. We can't even comprehend that. So for all of these reasons, the cause has to be Ishvara. Cause has to be some all-knowing, all-powerful being. And that which we call Ishvara. So here it says sarvagnyatva. It has to be all-knowing. Imagine so many things are there in creation. The cause has to be all-knowing. Pareshatvam, and supreme ruler. Means nobody, this is a supreme ruler, nobody else can rule. This is a supreme ruler. Because whenever there's two leaders or two rulers, there's trouble. There should always only be one, otherwise there's a lot of trouble. Sampurna Shaktita, and this being is all powerful, has to be all powerful. Vedaihi samarthyate, and this is proved by the scriptures. Just exactly how I told you, this is proved by the scriptures. Yasya tad brahma iti avadharaya. So that is Brahman, meaning that Ishvara is a gateway to Brahman. That Ishvara is a great gateway to Brahman. Why? Because, as I said, people, very few are the people who inquire as to what is within. But there are many who are looking at the world. So from the world, go to the cause of the world, which is Ishvara, which is sentiency. At least you come to sentiency through all the reasoning that I gave you. Then from Ishvara, slowly, when we negate the world, we come to Brahman. So that assertion, that is Brahman. That is Brahman. So this is one other way to come to Brahman. And this method is called tatastha lakshana. Tatastha lakshana means I'm using something else to come to Brahman. So I'm not negating what it's not. I'm not indicating what it is, but I'm using something else to come to Brahman. I'm using Ishvara to come to Brahman. That's called tatastha lakshana. Using something else which is not always there, that lordliness of the Lord or ruler-ness of the Lord or strength of the Lord is not always there because the world is not always there. So I'm using something that's not always there, that's apart from Brahman, to come to Brahman. So this is one of the ways also, right? So I'll just read this explanation, then we'll stop here. That which is proved in the Vedas as all-knowing, all-powerful, and supreme Lord is itself the infinite Brahman. Make sure of that Brahman in your own understanding. So if you see in the previous verses, it was sohamityavadharaya, ascertain that I am, saha aham iti avadharaya. Now it says tat brahma iti avadharaya, ascertain that is Brahman, ascertain that is Brahman. Because as I said, to come right away to the I am the substratum of the world is not a very easy feat. So first we come to all of these pointers, through all of these pointers, understanding what Brahman is, and then towards the end of the text we equate that ātman with Brahman. Tvam asi. Okay, so we'll stop here. More we will take up next week. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.